Hello, I am a grandmother over 70 years old. My husband and I have lived a very poor and difficult life. We were born into a family like this and grew up suffering. We met in a factory when we were young and immature. I lived in the countryside at the time and prudently moved to the city at the age of 15 to earn money. I started working as a sewing assistant in a clothing factory, helping the seamstresses sew clothes on sewing machines. My husband was 20 years old, 5 years older than me, and worked at the factory delivering the clothes. According to him, I caught his attention because I looked like his younger sister. He had left his home in the countryside, so he helped me here and there. Maybe that's why I also depended on him a lot. This feeling developed into love between us, and we got married 5 years later in a humble ceremony that consisted of nothing more than a bowl of purified water on a table with an oath to begin our marriage. We were so poor that we started our newlywed life in a single rented room in the basement. But when my husband and I were together, the place felt like paradise to me because we both felt so much pity for each other. We lived happily without ever having a single argument. Then, within a year of living together as a couple, I became pregnant with our first daughter. At my husband's insistence, I stopped working at the factory. I was grateful to him, but my heart ached because he had to work at the factory from dawn until late at night every day. I gave birth to our first daughter, and time flew by as I was immersed in taking care of her. 6 years later, we finally managed to move out of the basement room and rented 2 rooms that had abundant sunlight during the day. Around this time, I gave birth to our second daughter, who was as beautiful as a doll. We still couldn't escape poverty, but there was nothing to envy in the world when the 4 of us were together. However, as time went by, our immature second daughter began to think differently from me. She always envied her rich friends. When she became a teenager, she started complaining, "Why do I have to live in such a poor family? The other kids live in well-decorated rooms, wear beautiful clothes, and buy whatever they want to eat, and their homes are clean with nice furniture. But our house is so messy." Every time she complained about her situation, I felt terrible. My heart ached thinking about how she must be feeling to complain like that. But my eldest daughter always scolded her little sister when she did this. "Leonore, stop it. You are still a little girl. How dare you complain about the family's circumstances? Hey, why don't you like living like this? I hate it because it's so pathetic and so messy. I want to leave this house right now. If you leave, where will you go? Our mother and father are still working hard to feed us and put a roof over our heads, and yet you don't even thank them for raising you. You are being so rude. Whatever, I don't care. I can't keep living like this. I'm going to marry into a rich family and wear beautiful clothes. I'll spend money on expensive things and live as the wife of a rich man." Right, when are you going to grow up? I don't know. It's your life, so live it on your own, alright? Don't say you're jealous of me later, Isabella. If you like living like this, keep living like this. Just wait and see. I'm definitely going to marry into a rich family. I thought my second daughter was just immature since she was at such a sensitive age, so I didn't take her seriously. But one day I woke up in the early morning before dawn and felt particularly strange. Naturally, I thought my 2 daughters would be sleeping in their room. However, Leonore, my second daughter, had packed her things and run away. She left quietly while her sister was sleeping. Belinda said she was sleeping next to me first. "Mom, don't worry too much. I will search for her and find her." "That foolish girl. I'll look for her around the city." "No, Isabella, I'll take a walk around the city and look for her. You have to go to work, and your sister is still immature, so don't worry too much." Fortunately, you are not like that, but kids today are different from your time. My heart broke when my daughter left home. On one hand, I pretended to be calm about it. However, one day passed, then a week, and then 2 more weeks went by. But when I couldn't find her, I couldn't forgive myself for thinking so complacently. No one, not even her friends, said they had seen my daughter anywhere. I reported it to the police, and it was in the newspapers and distributed in flyers so people would know we were looking for our daughter. If I had gone out to search for our Leonore immediately, this wouldn't have happened. I began to have these useless regrets. They stayed in my heart for over 30 years, and I never gave up hope that one day I would find my daughter, no matter how many attempts I made. But there were no clues about our daughter. I lived in shock and ended up fainting several times, landing in the hospital. Eventually, my husband said, "Dear, let's stop looking for Leonore now. We searched a lot but didn't find her. It's because Leonore doesn't want to be found. She doesn't want to, so what can we do now?" At this point, Leonore is already an adult too. She left on her own, so she'll come back on her own too. Let's believe that and stop searching now. No, how can you say that? We don't even know if our daughter is alive or dead. Look, if she were dead, we would have been notified. Our daughter is clearly alive and just doesn't want to return yet. On the contrary, if she knows we are still searching for her, she will hide even more. So listen to me. Take care of yourself now, and you've been searching for Leonore and neglecting Isabella too much. Isabella is also our daughter, and what if Isabella leaves us too? When I heard this from my husband, I stopped immediately because of the 6-year difference. I always thought that the first daughter was enough, and after Leonore left home, I didn't think I needed to worry about my first daughter because she was already an adult. When I put myself in her shoes, I realized I shouldn't have acted like that as a mother, neglecting my first daughter. So from that day on, even though I searched secretly for my second daughter on my own, I didn't show it to my family and felt too guilty because she seemed to want to keep her distance from me. One day, Isabella told me that she had someone she wanted to marry. I immediately called her to bring him home and meet him. I didn't know much about him, but he seemed sincere, and since he worked in an office job for a company with business abroad, I thought that as a salaried husband, my daughter wouldn't have to worry about money. So I gave my permission for them to get married. Exactly 2 months later, my first daughter had her wedding. My first daughter left home. Even the youngest one, the legitimate one, left for some reason, so the house became too empty, and I felt restless and lived like that for almost a year. When I was just beginning to get used to this situation, the doorbell rang in the middle of the night, and my husband must have been so tired that he was still sleeping deeply, so I walked cautiously to the front door. "Who is it?" I thought maybe someone had made a mistake and rang the wrong doorbell, but I stood in front of the front door, and when I saw a box placed there, I was so shocked. At first glance, a newborn inside the large box must have been only about 3 months old, wrapped in thick blankets. Without understanding the situation, the baby was smiling and gurgling. I was so surprised and didn't know why someone would have abandoned a baby in front of my house. But even though I cursed the person who did this, I quickly picked up the baby and ran around our house looking for the person who left the baby there. I must have run like that for 30 minutes, and my legs lost their strength. Meanwhile, the baby fell asleep, unaware of anything. No matter how much I searched, there were no traces of the person. They must have left. So I had no choice but to take the child into the house. That day, our house was in chaos. My first daughter and her husband heard the story from me and came early in the morning and argued with me. They said I should report the baby to the police, and my husband said we needed to take the baby to an orphanage since we didn't know whose baby it was. As Isabella and her husband said, we should have called the police. But strangely, I didn't want to do that, and it hadn't even been a day in terms of time, but the baby thought I was its grandmother. It smiled whenever it saw me, and with those tiny little fingers, It held my old calloused fingers as if making a deal with me, promising that I wouldn't send it away, and was holding on to me. I knew my family would oppose it, but I kept postponing it, asking to wait just one more day, and so on to delay the moment. Dear, the baby's mother might come back to get him, so I can't take care of the baby temporarily for now. How could we send away such a tiny little thing? The weather is getting cold. I understand how you feel, but how could we keep someone else's baby? How could we know when the baby's mother will return? Right, Mom? If you keep the baby and get attached to him, then it will just be hard for you. Give me the baby. I'll take him to the police tomorrow. What? Take this tiny baby to the police? Isabella, please don't do that. Let's wait a little longer. A mother's heart can only be understood by another mother. Now, the mother who abandoned the baby must be going crazy. Mom, don't worry, let's wait a few more days. Even though my husband didn't say much, it seemed like he understood how I felt. In fact, when he saw the baby, he couldn't stop thinking about my second daughter, Leonore, who had left home. However, if I brought my second daughter back, it could be painful for my first daughter, Isabella. So I was afraid to talk about it. As a united couple, my husband read my mind, stepping in to stop our first daughter on my behalf with an excuse. Let's wait for the baby's mother. I managed to care for the baby for over a month. I had forgotten how, but my hands remembered, and I changed diapers, fed, and comforted the baby. We discovered that the baby was a girl. Memories of raising my two daughters in the past resurfaced. I completely forgot the depression because I devoted myself to being a mother, and the baby brought light into my old age. Time passed, and even after 3 months, no one came to claim the child. So naturally, I couldn't help but feel sorry for this abandoned baby. I told my husband that I wanted to adopt her and raise her, but he said he knew I would do that, which is why he opposed it from the beginning. A week later, my first daughter and her husband came to see me. In fact, they were moving to Australia due to a job change, and I thought they had come home to say goodbye. My daughter said something unexpected. Mom, I heard from Dad. Do you really want to adopt the baby? Oh, I thought you came to say goodbye since you're moving to Australia. You came because of this? You must have heard from Dad, but it's not the baby's fault. I feel so bad for this baby that I can't send her away to another place. I'll raise her and make sure it's not a burden on you. To be honest, I don't think I could live without this baby. I hate to bring this up, but after your younger sister left home like that, and now with you moving abroad, how could I live feeling so alone without you? Actually, I've been living like that all along, but now I'm laughing because of this baby. It's okay, I understand how you feel. We'll put our names on her birth certificate. Wouldn't that be more natural? And don't think you're taking care of this baby alone, but if you ever feel it's too much, call me immediately. I'll be her mother, and I'll help while I'm here. Really? You're okay with this? And Leonardo then spoke, It's fine with me. I'm happy to have such a beautiful daughter like her, but it's a shame we're moving to Australia. Actually, I wouldn't mind taking her with us. No, I want to raise her myself, and that's why we ended up this way. But asking you to put your name on her birth certificate is too much for you. I'm sorry for you seeing your parents this way. At first, they were surprised, but now that they know the situation, they understand. Oh, please tell them I'm very grateful. No, I'll thank them personally. Thank you so much. Thanks to my daughter and her husband, I became a grandmother to that baby. We named her Larissa. Larissa had a lot in common with my two daughters. While I raised her, I kept imagining how it would be without her, since she brought us so much joy. Besides, she was so smart that she came first in the whole school without any private lessons, and she grew up envied by everyone as she was so popular and was elected student council president every year. Grandma, look, I got the highest grade in the whole school again. Didn't I do well this time too? Oh, my little one, I'm so proud of you. How are you so smart? Is there anything you would like to eat? I'll make anything for you. No, let's ask Grandpa to take us out to eat. No, I just want to eat the chicken soup you make. Grandpa doesn't seem to be feeling well. He looked sick or something. When he gets home, he just goes to sleep, so I'm worried. I know, but it's because Grandpa drinks. I wish he would listen to me the way you do. While I go out to buy some things to make the soup, stay home and rest. No, I'll go with you. I'll carry the groceries for you. It would be too hard for you to carry them alone. It's not that hard. I'm as strong as a horse. Stay home. Grandpa said he'll be back soon too, and I'll be right back. So keep an eye out, okay? I told her and felt so happy to hear that our granddaughter had gotten the highest grade in the whole school. So I indulged myself and bought a cart full of groceries. The three of us had dinner together, and suddenly I looked at the calendar and realized I had forgotten our second daughter's birthday. Usually, I remembered and wrote all the birthdays on the calendar and never forgot our children's birthdays, but it was the first year that I forgot, even though she wasn't at home with us. I remembered to make the birthday cake and her favorite food, chicken soup, but only when I was preparing it did I remember Leonore and felt guilty for forgetting her birthday, and I felt a weight in my heart. At that moment, I heard my husband's loud cough, and Larissa ran to the kitchen, shouting in shock. Grandma, Grandpa coughed up blood. I'll call 911, and you go see him, please. I was perplexed by Larissa's shouts, and when I went out to see my husband, he had fainted, coughing up blood. I was so scared and out of my mind that I trembled a lot while going in the ambulance with him unconscious. Larissa held my hands tightly and kept telling me he would be fine. But even at my age, I ended up leaning on her words and enduring the terrifying moments. Only then did I realize that she wasn't even wearing shoes. She had entered the ambulance barefoot. I was barefoot too. It's okay, Grandma. Put these shoes on quickly. I'll be fine. I forced Larissa to put on my shoes. When we arrived at the hospital, my husband underwent some tests, and the results showed that he had cirrhosis of the liver. Before getting married, he didn't drink a drop of alcohol, but after Leonore left home, he started drinking a glass or two, and that's how he began drinking. Eventually, it made him sick. It was in an advanced and very late stage. He must have been in a lot of pain. He is so stubborn and never complains. Now, the only treatment left is a liver transplant. A liver transplant? Oh my God. I'm sorry to say this, but we need a donor from your family. The procedure and surgery time will be much faster now. It's very urgent for your husband. Hearing this, I didn't know what to do. How could I tell this to my daughter? I told him that I would donate my liver, and Larissa also asked to be tested to see if she was a match. I was so surprised by what she said. I got angry at her, even though I was grateful deep down. You can't do this. If you say that again, I'll be very mad. Why? I'm not your real granddaughter. What I found out is that even though I'm not your real granddaughter, there are cases where the liver can still be compatible. So I want to repay you by receiving only your love. Be quiet. Why are you talking nonsense? You better never say that again. Still, if we waste time and Grandpa doesn't get a transplant in time, I couldn't bring myself to say that we had to give up. Fortunately, my daughter called me. I was hesitant to call her, and since she was our daughter, I felt that I needed to at least tell her, so I answered the call. I omitted the part about her father needing a liver transplant and only said that he was in the hospital and being examined. But she said she would return immediately. so she showed up at the hospital. Larissa wasn't there because she had gone to school, and the doctor doing the rounds saw me and my daughter and smiled, saying that he could schedule the surgery date. I asked him while he was talking when I was about to apply to donate my liver, and my daughter was shocked to hear about the liver transplant since I hadn't told her yet. But when the doctor said that both of us were compatible, we were so shocked that we were speechless. Your granddaughter was tested. You didn't know? She told us that you were also informed. The test results came back positive, and that's why I was about to schedule the surgery date. I scolded her so that she wouldn't do it, but why would she undergo surgery? I didn't raise Larissa to do this. Mom, calm down. Doctor, I'll do the test. Larissa is too young. So my daughter took the test. I couldn't tell her not to do it. She said that she was the eldest daughter, so how could she ask Larissa, who isn't her blood relative, to undergo a liver transplant? She didn't hesitate for a second and took the test. Meanwhile, my husband's condition deteriorated severely, and he fell into a coma. I scolded Larissa and forbade her from coming near the hospital. But when the test results from my daughter came back, I collapsed in despair. I thought that since she was our eldest daughter, she would be a match, but the test result was negative. I also took the test and was negative from the start. I was terrified, and then the nurse, who had a special fondness for our Larissa, told us that she was outside in the corner of the ward and couldn't come in because I had forbidden her to approach. Before I knew it, I screamed, beating my chest. I was mad. I should have let her go at that moment. But this isn't something I should do with someone else's child. I should have handed the baby over to the police, as you said, Isabella. Mom, who knew this would happen? Larissa is our daughter now, my daughter and your granddaughter. If she's saying she'll donate her liver, let's accept that with gratitude. I'll be a good mother to her. You'll be punished, you fool. I raised Larissa, but how can we do this with her body? That's when the nurse, who was listening to our conversation, shook her head. Then she opened her mouth to say something, and I thought I was dreaming at that moment. I hate to interrupt while you were talking, but your granddaughter is not your biological daughter. Oh, there was a situation, but she is my daughter. I understand, but it turns out that you are relatives. My daughter's face grew wide and shocked. I also thought of something, and it was my second daughter, Leonore, who came to mind. Could Larissa possibly be Leonore's daughter? Then she was the one who rang that doorbell. When my thoughts reached that point, I fainted. I had been searching for my daughter for so long and lost her again when she was at my doorstep. Even at that moment, I was thinking about my second daughter. I missed her so much. How difficult must it have been for her to leave her baby at our door? If it was so hard, she shouldn't have run away and should have come back home with her baby. If I could go back in time, I would do it, but of course that couldn't happen. When I came to, I thought that if Larissa's biological mother was my daughter Leonore, I promised that I would find her this time. I felt sad but grateful that Larissa donated her liver, and the operation was a success. My daughter and I took care of my husband and Larissa, and at the same time, we searched for Leonore everywhere. Then we found a woman who said she worked with Leonore. That night, she found a lead, but hope turned into despair, and I started to hate Leonore. I remember her. She was so beautiful and very popular at the shop where she worked. She only worked in our shop for about 6 months and then got married. He was a frequent customer at her shop, and this guy was very famous and rich. Then someone else said, "Oh, that woman?" She was kicked out because she couldn't bear a son. Her mother-in-law was no joke. They didn't even marry legally, so she was treated as a mistress, yet they treated her very badly. Being a sick woman, her husband was a playboy, and when he found out that his wife was sick, he abandoned her so coldly. She begged him while carrying the baby, and I even cried because it was so pathetic. But why are you looking for her? I found out that my precious daughter was treated as a mistress by some guy and abandoned because she was sick. It was heartbreaking for a mother. I was so torn, imagining how she must have felt leaving her baby and dragging her sick body away. I fainted again. When I regained consciousness, I remember my husband saying he would notify me if she had died, and I began to hope again that she might still be alive. Mom, you reported Leonore as missing, right? But if the disappearance exceeds 7 years, her social security number will be canceled. Maybe that's why we haven't heard anything. What? Then we have no way of finding her again. No, Leonardo found her. He really did. Is that true? Let's go immediately. Call Larissa. Let's find her. Yes, let's go. Dad and Larissa are recovering very well now, so let's all go together to find Leonore. I was so happy to hear that Leonore had been found. I was happy and grateful that she was alive, but those feelings turned to grief when the place my daughter led us to wasn't a place where my daughter was alive. It was just a sad grave without a tombstone, with weeds growing all around. I collapsed sobbing. It was the only thing I could do as a mother. Next to me, Larissa was crying. I had never seen her cry while raising her, but she must have felt so sad to see her biological mother that she rubbed her face against the grave and cried so sorrowfully. I really hated you so much because you abandoned me. I thought I would never forgive you and that I didn't need a mother who abandoned me like that. But if you just die like this, what will I do? Mom, I waited for you for so long. I held my granddaughter, who couldn't outwardly express how much she longed for her mother. Isabella, I said, Leonore, your daughter Larissa is fine. I'm taking good care of her, so don't worry, my dear, your beautiful daughter. I'm sorry that I was poor in your next life. Be born into a rich family and live happily, receiving lots of love. I caressed the grave as if it were her face. Then Isabella began to cry, and she knelt in front of the grave and screamed, Leonore, are you not going to obey your sister until the end? How could you go before me so I can't chase after you and scold you properly? I can't tell you that I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that you were immature back then. I should have just hugged you like my beautiful little sister. You are so beautiful and lovely. I used to brag about you to others every day, but I never had the chance to tell you personally that you were beautiful. I'm sorry, my little sister. No matter what will I do without you? When my daughter spoke so sincerely, my husband and son-in-law also turned away to wipe their tears. My husband didn't say it in words, but as if he missed Leonore, he couldn't leave the place promptly. We stayed there, calling her name until sunset. We put up a tombstone, cut the overgrown grass, and placed flowers in front of her grave. Only then did I feel like I could have some closure in my mind somehow. I went to find the man who had kicked my daughter out like that, but he had lost his entire fortune and was imprisoned after being convicted of fraud and physical assault. His family, who boasted and was arrogant because they were rich, also declared bankruptcy and were hiding somewhere in the countryside, selling towels as street vendors. I thought about seeking revenge on him, but Larissa said, Grandma, I understand how you feel, but I can't forgive them, so I don't want to see them. But I have enough strength. I'm an incapable person, so I will see them to avenge my mother's death. So don't look for them now. I will repay them 1,000 times for my mother, not 10,000 times to avenge my mother. Larissa, I don't want you to live with that kind of thought, right? I agree. Now that society has already punished them, let's live successfully. That's the real revenge. Grandpa, I think your mother sent you to us so we could raise you, hoping that you wouldn't know anything about them. Darling, I think you must have recognized our granddaughter correctly at that time. I think so. I didn't want to send her anywhere else because she was our descendant. And that's why, Larissa, for your mother and for yourself, please be happy. Then I can go see your mother and tell her proudly that we did well. I wanted our granddaughter to have hope and no thoughts of revenge in her heart. As if she understood how we felt, she studied even harder despite being an excellent student at school. Eventually, she was accepted to Harvard with a full scholarship and later went to Harvard Law School. She said she didn't want victims like her biological mother and that she would become a judge. I was so proud of her, and she touched my heart. So, as Larissa wanted, my eldest daughter became a judge after graduating from Harvard Law School and has worked for many years. The only problem is that she is not thinking about getting married, even though we have encouraged her to live in the countryside. She insisted that we live in the city, moved us to Boston to a luxury condominium with a fantastic view, and my husband and I are living an extravagant lifestyle, wondering if it's good to live like this for so long. My eldest daughter got pregnant, and it's a boy. She said she has a first daughter, Larissa, so she is very happy to be a mother to a very beautiful daughter as well. My eldest daughter had lived apart, but now we are living close by and have become very close. Larissa is very busy, but it's so good to see my daughter so happy, and I believe all this happened thanks to our Larissa and because of her effort. So my husband and I made a promise until the last moment we are in this world, to protect our granddaughter and make her happy as much as we can. Now, my husband has stopped drinking and exercises a lot to maintain his health since he found a second life after his granddaughter gave him a part of her precious love. When I look at him, I feel like I'm getting healthier just by watching. I can't be greedy as I age, but if I have my last wish, I would like our Larissa to find a good partner and be happy. If she could be happy, I wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice my own life for her, but I pray that this wish will come true and I will end my story here. Thank you for listening to my story, and be healthy and happy.